welcome everyone. We're starting the show with a few less people. We do have a few folks gonna join as we go, but we thought we'd go ahead and do a little coverage on our experiences at Gulf Wars this year. So His Excellency Simon joins us right now, and Her Grace Antigone. Antigone, since you kind of ran the show and did a lot better job at doing all of that there than I did, because I have like all kinds of things. This episode's a little bit about how the classes went and how some of the fighting went and things that we enjoyed and things we learned. And I definitely got some learning things in. So why don't you go ahead and tell us how the classes went?
Yeah, absolutely. So this year's the first year that Coach's Corner branched out and did a symposium. And so what that meant is basically we held multiple classes over from about 1 p.m. to 5 p.m. And we had people from all over the known world that were kind enough to donate their time and do some really amazing classes, which we've covered kind of their thoughts on it before. But I was really, really happy with how everything went, other than technology hiccups, which I feel like we can all say that nope, none of us are technology wizards. And just a pitch, if you're a technology wizard, we need your help. But aside from, some struggling with microphones, recording, and a little bit of setup, the classes themselves went really, really well. We had some amazing attendance. I know we were looking at, at Penzic, we average anywhere from like 8 to 12 is pretty common. I think is what you said, Brannos. And then here at Gulf Wars, we actually had some pretty insane numbers. So we had one class that had 34 in it. Another that had 22. We had some that 15. We had a couple that were smaller, about 2 to 5. And in those classes that were smaller in the 2 to 5s, a lot of people said that, because I was trying to chat with people as I walked by and as things ended, they said they felt like they got really good information personalized with them. Whereas with the bigger classes, you don't get as many personalized kind of bits and pieces, but it obviously showed us that there's a need for certain types of classes, which are a lot of the very back to basics. Tend to pull a lot of people. And then one of the cool things we decided to do this year, and Brannos let me try it, is in addition to just doing the classes, is doing a thing called clinics. And so that's essentially where you have one instructor and anywhere from 2 to maybe 5 people in it. And it's for not just 45 minutes or an hour, it's at least 2 hours where essentially that person is very, very strong at teaching certain things. And so you would sign up to kind of learn from them their viewpoints on those specific things that they wanted to kind of convey, but it was very personalized. So in that, if you signed up for it, you would put in like, here's exactly the things I want to learn. Here's my weaknesses. Here's, video of me fighting. And so all of the instructors went through all that information that was given and really studied their students before they even had the clinics, which was kind of cool. And I know both Count Elias Duchess and Duke Sven allowed people to sit in and watch the clinics, but did not allow those people watching to really ask questions or get involved. Simply, if they were curious, they could sit, or if they had a secondary trainer that was coming with them to kind of learn. So that I know we had one person sit in because they wanted to learn kind of how the two of them were teaching to get better at that. And so they sat in to kind of see how they individualize things, which was really good. So I think all in all, everything went off really well. We ran a survey. We didn't get very many responses to the survey, which we knew we wouldn't. Survey response is often very, very rare, especially when it's, a fighting thing out in the field in the middle of a war. But the bits and pieces we did get definitely were asking for more fundamental classes. And then everything else was very positive. So I'm really happy with how it went. I will say it was fun watching people be going back and forth from pickup fighting, then going to a class, and then going to pickup fighting back and forth was kind of fun. And but yeah, so that's my thoughts on the classes. And yes, I do want to do it again next Gulf War. I think it had a great, it reached definitely way more students and different types of students than Penzic does. And a completely different demographics as in terms of location. So we had a lot more Southern and Southwestern students from the United States than whereas Penzic, we have a lot more, Northeastern and maybe some Western students. Can't hear you, Brannos.
Mute, Brannos.
We all do it
after all these years, huh? It was interesting, hearing so many people. There was a number of people who were like, "Oh yeah, we never heard of Coach's Corner" and all that. After all the years of Penzic and all of that. But I think you were 100% right. I think we kind of hit certain spots, but a lot of the South we don't get a lot of a lot of people down there doing stuff like what we've been doing. So it was really nice to get like a whole different crew of people. I think the thing I really loved was because the event was already rolling, there was already fighting going on, there was already a battle that morning. People kind of came in and left. So we're at Penzic, it's the first week. You come and hang out there most of the day. You might get some other stragglers come in here and there, but it's first week, setup week. Usually it's the people that really that's what they come here for. They come and get classes and they kind of grind on that a little bit. At Gulf Wars, it was a really much more dynamic group of people coming in and out. I really did enjoy that there's a bunch of pickup going. And then when, a number of the coaches were over there doing pickup with them and then to run over and do our classes and, or do their classes or hang in around and talk to the other teachers or watch what was going on. So there was so much going on at the same time. The activity was so much higher than where Penzic, it's pretty easy. We have our area, we have a tent. Usually we just go through bang, 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 hour after hour after hour for multiple days. And it's like going to school. This was really much more like a seminar in its true fashion, where you had tons of different people coming in. You had people interacting and activity all day, all around it, which presented its own problems, between the issues with some reception issues on that secondary phone and things like that. So we tried to get as much as we could. I think really looking, I posted up 4 classes today. I think I have one more on my phone that I had to run. It's a footwork class that I just videoed on my phone. So I got to pull that video off, and then I got to touch base with Louis to get the other few that we had. But I think maybe the only class we missed was my class at the end, but that was okay. Although I kind of wish I would have had it, because it actually went much better than when I did it at Penzic. So, but that's all right. It was from the beginning day to the end of the day. The end of the day, I have to say, poor Simon, you and both you and I had relatively small classes comparative to the early part of the day. But I think by then, we're getting towards dinner time and all of that. It seemed like your folks liked your class. So, and I think the big part, like Antigone said, is like when you really get that one-on-one, it's almost easier to teach, because you kind of get a feel for where they're at. So sometimes it's like, okay, I wanted to present all of this stuff, but really maybe that's too much. Is that kind of the feel did you end up modifying your class for Penzic or for Gulf Wars?
Much taught the class as I had written it. I made a couple of adjustments on the fly, but as you said, because I only had a few, I was able to kind of interact with them more directly, which is kind of my jam anyway. I'm very much the weaponized extrovert. I love people, and to be able to just kind of dig in like that on some of those things and get questions and be a little bit more personalized with it, that part was pretty cool. And definitely in the future, Antigone, I don't want to be opposite Brannos.
Yeah, I felt I
He's a
know,
much
and
bigger name than I am, for sure.
that, so I will say that that is the that was kind of the downside, is we were having to run essentially 4 classes at
Kidding.
once, and
No
we
kidding.
but it is a downside of trying to shove that many classes into that short period of time. Is, you know, we unfortunately had to pick,
Yeah.
and I was able to catch some of yours as I was standing there kind of overhearing and listening and everything, and and watching the students and their body language and stuff like that. And I think it went really well. But it is unfortunately the downside of kind of doing it like this, is that we did. Now the other side is we could have had fewer classes, but in my mind, you know, if we had fewer classes, that probably would have been just as problematic, because I mean, like I said, at some points we had up to running at the same time like 50 students. So if we had
Right.
one class, that would be 50. That's too many
No,
students.
I thought it was great, actually.
Yeah.
In fact, I was thinking about it, and for a variety of different reasons, this is the first major war I haven't fought either heavy or rapier at in almost 40 years.
Mhm.
Wow.
I had to work a bunch, and then teach in the class, and my wife was teaching classes the same time we were, and the next day. And
Mhm.
so I ended up, kind of being her Sherpa a little bit, because she teaches harp, and she has these enormous harps that
Oh
she's
yeah.
got to travel around, and she's just a little tiny person. And so it actually worked out pretty great for me. After having just stepped down a couple of months ago, the burnout thing is real. I had been on the path for a long time, and then I moved out here to the Outlands and immediately fell in with, the guys that ended up being my squires, one of whom's now a knight. And then after COVID, I fought in, every crown for 3 years, and then finally won. And then the reign was packed. And
Yep.
so we had just stepped down. And as you guys both know, you got to reclaim your house. You got to get your life back, and, figure out a way to get some sleep in there that you weren't getting for the last 9 months. And so it was nice for me. Gulf Wars was a much more relaxed kind of vibe. And so, um, I've taught this class before, but I had kind of added some additional details based on the last couple of times I taught it. And so it gave me, with a smaller class, it did give me a little bit of an opportunity to kind of find the sweet spot with it. And it also gave me a chance to kind of sit in a little bit on like Duchess class, and Gabe and Nick's Madhu class, which I thought was phenomenal. I'm a big footwork guy. I started out with rapier first. I took ballet and modern dance in college. I've been a borderline UFC MMA guy all my life, and so footwork is crucial to me. And I'm from Duchess's lineage, right? So I've stolen all that stuff from him, and a bunch of stuff from Brannos and Uther in the West, and a handful of other guys. And so to be able to see how those guys teach differently, and to be able to just kind of, be that fly on the wall and kind of go back and forth. And because I was able to get my class done in about 45 minutes, I was able to kind of sneak over and catch the last 10 or 12 minutes of Brannos's class. And he threw some stuff out that I was just like, and it was really funny, because some of the stuff that I've either watched videos with these guys, or I took some classes. I've taken a couple classes with Brannos over the years. I've been Duchess's Grand Squire for almost 20 years. So, he's shoved a lot of that information at me. And sometimes it's hard to remember where it all comes from. And I try to be very open and honest about, this is none of my original stuff. But it was cool kind of seeing some of those West Coast guys, and having them teach very similar things in a different way, with kind of a different spin and a different way of wrapping your head around it. And for me, the real highlight was Gabe and Nick's footwork explanation on how they kind of get around the corner on you with Madhu, because you have to, you can't overextend with that weapons form. When you're sword and board, you got a lot more, margin for error, I guess is the best word for it. Whereas with Madhu, if you're reaching or you're stretching, or if you're not completely in control, things can get ugly for you fast. And the way they conveyed that on how they stay in their sweet spot and their happy place was really great for me. And then, like I said, I went over and I had watched some of Duchess stuff, and I've worked with him a ton from when I lived in the East. And then the last few minutes of Brannos's class, I went over and he was literally talking about something I was talking about in my class, and I was like, "Oh, that's right, I stole it from you." So yeah, I thought it was great for, it worked out really, really good for me. And I will tell you, some of the people that I know, because I've lived in 7 kingdoms and I've moved 9 times. I've now got people on the West Coast that are, in fact, I reached out to you about this the other day,
Mhm.
Antigone, that are already like, "Hey, when are you guys going to expand to Great West
Yep.
and War of the Phoenix?" And I was like,
Sa-
"I don't know, but I'll ask Antigone." That's the
So
level of interest that's out there, though.
yes. So, and I got that question. That was going to be one of the questions that I was going to kind of pop on here. And the answer to that is currently there aren't any solid plans at all. It's definitely, it does take a lot of organization, a lot of juggling of people, of getting firm commitments, of getting on the calendar at the event, of making sure everything aligns, and it did take a little bit more work than I thought it would. So when it comes to that, as far as like this year, are there any plans? Currently, no. To be quite honest, like I had to start this 6 months before Gulf War in order to make this happen. So were we to do something, out of, because for me, there's a certain level of what it should look like and how it should be run, and the people and the quality of instructors we're getting. And so for me to be able to do that, I would say we would probably need to look at next year rather than this year if we are going to branch out to something other than Gulf War or Penzic. And by all means, there could be somebody else on the Coaches Corner team that is all gung ho and is able to run it and do it as well. But that's definitely questions we've gotten at the event and after the event. And then the other questions that we got during the event, or before the event, during the event, and after the event is, when are you going to add rapier? And so I have an answer finally. We definitely tried to get a rapier class, at least one, at Gulf War. Unfortunately, the instructors we really wanted were not available for various reasons during the war. But that being said, I went ahead and used Gulf War to recruit for Penzic, and we will definitely have rapier classes at Penzic. I'm not sure how many or on what day yet, but we definitely will have some. So that answers that question. Everybody can stop pounding me.
Well, I'm glad you got so many people actually interested in, talking about, hey, we want some rapier classes, and we'll have to work out the details of like where those are going to be.
Yep.
They're going to be on the same fields or closer to the rapier fields at Penzic. But jumping out and getting the folks you already did, I think are great because they're top level guys I know too. So I'm super happy. Love to get more of that, the rapier stuff on the channel itself. And we've been trying to do that, and hopefully this is a big spark for that, and we can make it happen. As far as Estrella Phoenix Wars, I think the key there will be just the real demand, and then also who's going, and if we have time to really structure it. I have to say I was a little concerned on a short week. Like Penzic is relatively easy because we can schedule lots of days the first week, and it's all open pretty much. Where that wasn't necessarily the case, wasn't necessarily the case for Gulf Wars. I was like, oh man, we got a battle, and then we got like half hour to get from the battle to open up the other piece, and so. But I think overall it worked out pretty good. I wish personally I had done more testing with my old phone. My new phone worked fine. Old phone was just spotty on reception. So I wish I would have done more testing there. And then I think one of the other problems was I bought another microphone of the same brand, and I think they were having trouble because of that. So the microphone stuff wasn't very good. We got a couple with, couple without. But You know, so more testing on that, and more technology stuff. We'll keep working on that probably harder this time, next time, just to try to make it a little easier for us, and more consistent is going to be the biggest key there. So,
When I think part of that is, because I had some learning curve on mine as well. I'm pretty prepared. My motto is always have a
mhm.
plan, and I still showed up not quite ready. And so, having gone through that now, I've got a better take on, what to do for next time,
Yeah.
how to improve that, how to tweak it, whatever. And so I thought that was a really good place to kind of work out some of that.
Mhm.
Everybody knew it was our first time. I felt like everybody was very amenable, just kind of easy to work with. Nobody seemed like they got too wound up about anything. It was a very relaxed atmosphere. And so it kind of allowed us to work through some of that and dial in, ooh, well, this is kind of how we want to do this, or maybe this would be better, or that, or the other. And so I think it was from the, obviously I wasn't running the thing like you guys were. I just kind of showed up and did my class and then kind of audited a couple of the other ones. But from my perspective, I thought it went really smoothly, and everybody seemed to have a
Okay.
really good takeaway from it. Everybody that I spoke to about it was either, yeah, that was great, or damn, I'm sorry I missed it. So
Yeah.
I
Well,
maybe a little bit more pub in the advance, I think, would probably be a big help, because there were a number of people that were like, damn. And I was like, it was on Facebook. I put it on my
yeah,
page. Like,
yeah.
Brannos has posted stuff, and they're like, oh, we just totally didn't see it. So,
Yeah. It was
gotta fight the
definitely,
algorithm, I guess.
yeah, and that's one of the struggles we have, that since society uses Facebook so much to distribute information, and it kind of picks and chooses what gets out there. It definitely was promoted on all the different channels, Discords. It was in the schedule that was live. It was in the Google Calendar schedule, the virtual schedule on the Google Sheets, and then it was also in made publications in the site book. So, I feel like we did as well as we could with the tools that we kind of have as far as that. Now, the only other thing we probably could have done is try to put up flyers, all over site about it a couple of days,
Or
on
something.
Sunday or something. Yeah, which
Right.
I know some people do for parties and things like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And in hindsight, so for next year, that's definitely something that's like on my, hey, this is something we should do next year to kind of help with that, is kind of post flyers on that Sunday when everybody's getting there. So people are like, oh, okay, that's cool, and put that on their list in case they missed that it was going to be there. But I think if we say we're doing it again next year, which I haven't gotten 100% confirmation yet, but hopefully we do. If we do that, then people will be like, no, to start looking for it. Just like people now know they can go to Peace Week of Penzic and get all these classes in fighting in now, which didn't used to be a thing, and now it is. So.
Yeah, yeah, and that's a great idea on maybe canvassing with more stuff on kind of the the porta johns, or in anything that's there. They've got. I
Right.
thought they had some boards there too, but yeah, it's hard to get information at events. It seems like, although Gulf Wars, I thought they had like some other Facebook stuff running that people were posting, like where the parties were at and all of that kind of stuff.
They did, and our stuff was posted in there. It
Okay.
just wasn't listed like parties and things like that. There's a couple of people that attend Gulf War every year and Penzic, and they create like the highlights, as it were, if you're an armored fighter, the highlights if you're a rapier fighter, and the highlights if you just go to party. And I am relatively sure Coach's Quarter was on the armored highlights schedule that a couple of those people made. So yes, they also have an app, which that app should feed directly from the website, which
that would have been
it was
nice.
on. Yeah, which it was on there. So it should have fed directly into the app. But
Yeah.
Definitely true. And sometimes we do the best we can.
Yep. That's all we can do, right?
Yeah.
I think the other really good part about the classes, and again, we had a whole host. If you can once Antigone, if you can pop up a graphic when you get a chance of the classes there. Well,
Okay.
one good part about the classes there is everybody was pretty much there. There was so much working going on all day long. It was impressive to watch, like how fast the each of the coaches came in and got stuff running. That was really done well. I really like that some coaches were watching other people's classes to get ideas on how to make their classes better. I think we're lucky at Penzic. We've had a lot of that. So there's lots of times in our classes. I usually like to try to, we had a lot of newer kind of teachers there. And one thing I notice is, they're still building a kind of how to build my class piece out of what they do, which is always very difficult. I'm going to actually publish kind of a class layout to help folks in the future. One thing I like trying to do is some lecture, some actual physical stuff to show people what's going on, and then some actual drills so that they get to try it, because that kind of covers all three levels of learning. And I think the sooner, like the younger trainers and things like that kind of get into that mode, it's actually really, those classes get really engaging, because you're there helping people, right? You can walk around, help people. And if your classes are so big, you grab somebody else that knows what they're doing, that you've trained before, and bring them in, and they can help along with that. But you get a lot of work done in that style of class. It's hard to keep attention of the whole class just in lecture. So you have to watch that a bit, especially when you don't have things like boards to write on or things like that. So, but even the lecture classes I thought went well. I know Al-Anon's class was packed. I think the best comment I heard was, it was like a number of people brought up that every class felt like it almost layered on top of the other class. So it was really nice to hear. I think that's fundamental to what we do. I think really high-end, people that have this experience all also know that, footwork and position and the thinking through the game are critical. And in most of their classes, even no matter what they're teaching, those are still the sub parameters of the class, is that, okay, here's a thing you can do, but you have to make sure you have the right placement and your feet have to be in the right spot, and all of those things,
Well, there's a lot of commonalities there.
Yeah.
Well, and I think you and I were talking about this at the war, is the advent of social media, about 2010. We went from being a bunch of separate people in our own little kingdoms with very little interconnectivity, except for the occasional war here and there. And, over the last 15, 16 years, you go to war, you meet somebody, you get on Facebook with them, right? Or now Discord, or, pick a thing. And so we've been able to kind of cross-pollinate a lot of that. And, like I said earlier, I've been really fortunate, 7 kingdoms, 9 moves. At the time, it seemed like it sucked, but now it's really great, because I ended up knowing a bunch of those guys. I've known Ed and Nick and Gabe and Al-Anon and you. And so it was great. During the day, we were able to kind of stop and kind of chat about some of those things. Like I talked to Nick and Gabe, like, hey guys, I saw this in your class, and it's very similar to something I teach, and I really like the way you presented that. And they both came back with and they were so excited, like they were just so jazzed about the whole thing. And so to be able to kind of share that, and then now we're all taking that back to, you're in the mid, Artemisia, Aitenveld, I'm in Outlands, Ed's in the East. And now we're taking all that information, and even the people that didn't get to those classes are going to get to share in some of that information, because we're going back and talking to our people about it, and it really, like I said, after the rain, we've all of us that have reigned know you get to the end and it's great experience, but you're just darn tired, right? Burnout is a thing. And I came back from golf really excited again, mainly from those conversations that we had on Tuesday, watching those classes and then kind of sharing that information back and forth. And like you said, those things that we all know have to happen, those commonalities. And now, it was a big thing for me in the MMA world. Originally in the MMA world, you had karate, and you had, the boxing guys, and you had
Oh yeah.
jujitsu guys, and you had this, that, and the other, right? And, the first 2 or 3 UFCs, if you're old enough to remember that, they were very like specialized. Like one guy did all of this stuff, right? And then over the course of the next 3 to 4 years, everybody realized, ooh, I need to cross train, and I need to get an aspect of this in my game and an aspect of this in my game and pull some of that in. And I think a lot of that is paralleled in what we do. If you get a guy out there that's, great defense, but just cannot really deliver a blow, he can go to somebody and, say, hey, teach me how to do this. Or in my case, I had a squire, I'm an adequate glaive and spear guy, but I had a squire who's now a knight that came in and said, I don't want to be a sword and board guy. I want to be a glaive and spear guy. And so I was like, okay. And so I put him together with, Sir Torstein from my kingdom, Duke Tom from North Shield, handful of other guys. And now he's an absolute monster. He's been better than me on both of those forms for 5 or 6 years.
Yeah, and that's one of the cool things that I like about Coach's Corner specifically is you're able to get people like that in contact from people from all over the U.S. that they can work with and kind of help mold them into a better fighter, which is why I tell people it's so important to travel and not just go to just your one fighter practice or just your kingdom events. Try to travel and go to some of these inter-kingdom events and big wars, because you'll meet so many people and network with them and learn so much. But so Magnus was able to join us. Hi, Magnus.
Magnus.
Hi, everyone. My internet was being a little weird. Am I coming through clear now?
Yep, you're doing great.
Audio
Yeah.
is good. Camera's good.
Yep. So
Awesome,
Magnus,
awesome.
Magnus was able. This is his first time he was able to join Coach's Corner as an instructor and taught a class, and so that was really cool. That we definitely had him as a new instructor. And so we've already kind of covered all of our classes and things we attended, but I know your spear class was really well attended and well put together, and you'd already had some experience teaching it. So, is there anything, that you did differently at Gulf War, or how was your experience as a first time teacher as well? In Coach's Corner, not first time teacher, just in general.
Again, I've taught. Yeah. So I have taught this class. We taught this at our Sable Soldier. I taught it for our then king at the time. So I have experience teaching this class, but this was the biggest audience I taught it in front of. Thank God we had, I guess, this many spears. So everyone luckily was able to grab a spear.
That was so fun to watch. That was so fun to watch.
I guess the one thing I would change kind of retrospective is I would have, we were really short on room in our trailer, but I would have found a way to bring a Pell and bring it out. Because I'm telling people, hey, you got to, the system is really based off of going against a target, and that's how I've taught in the past. So saying an imaginary spot in the air was a little more conceptual than kind of having a concrete Pell or concrete target, and I didn't want people hitting me in the face with that. So we did the best we could, but that'd be the one thing I changed. It seemed to be pretty successful. People kind of were really getting the hang of it. I know there was some issues with the audio, but the good thing about the way I teach it is we go step 1, step 2, step 1, then 2, then 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. So some people might find it a little annoying, but I really drill kind of the basics of those first couple of steps, because everything builds on itself. So that was really fun. I know it was successful. I will give shout out to a gentleman if he ends up hearing this. I believe his name is Lord Devon of Trimaris. He attended the class, and then I saw him the next day in the ravine battle, and he came at me with a spear, and I was like, "Where did he learn?" Oh wait, that was the guy in my spear class, and I talked to him a couple of the times, and he had said like, this is my first time ever using spear. I've picked it up before, but I've never felt confident to take it in a melee. And so kind of doing my class and kind of gave him that confidence. And he has a lot of natural abilities. I do believe his dad is a duke, so he's been around some high level people his whole life. But him saying, I feel confident to take this out now, there's our army, their army, and here he is coming in front and picking away at our line. And I was like, you can't be doing that. So it was one of those things where we got to duel it against each other, which was a very fun experience. And anytime there was a hold, I'd be like, where'd you learn that? Where'd you learn that? So that was a fun experience. It seems like all the members who took it, we got someone joining us. All the members who took it said they kind of took away and learned a lot. So that was a very, very rewarding thing from the teacher side.
Fun watching your students succeed.
Yeah, a little too much. It was a little too fun watching him. I know the next day he felt even more confident the next day in the the next couple of days in the fort battle, where it was me kind of holding a line against some spears, and he was like, "No, I got this," and he didn't. And then he came back and he was like, I got this. And after a couple of times, he did finally get me. So he did hold that one over me, and I was like, no, you faked me out. You were in that one. You should be proud of it. So it was really, really cool to see someone go from them saying, I don't feel confident with spear at all, to killing me in the battle, which was interesting. It wasn't fun for me to die, but it was fun. I could see the excitement in his eyes and the joy he had, and how confident he felt. And it seems like that's going to be something he takes home and comes back next year and be an even bigger problem, which I'm excited to deal with. I think you're muted. You're muted, Brannos.
Sorry about that. I think that's one of the biggest points of teaching. It's, get the chance to see others succeed is something, to me, is even better than me succeeding myself. So it's, I had a great opportunity with his now Grace Alark out in the West, who was from Kaid and B East, but he started training. I started training with him in like Penzik 23, and he was maybe 18 or something. And by like Penzik 26, we ended up in a tournament against each other, and we just called it out. It was like, okay, first touch, and the fight went on, and then he hit me, and I was like, that was like the best part of the day, right? And because he had been dedicated to come out for years, and to see that success was amazing. So I think the biggest part, and the part that I really like sharing with so many other people, is the opportunity to get the bigger stages. So hopefully you enjoyed that opportunity, and we can keep putting up bigger stages out there. I think it's great for, here's an example. It's great for somebody now who hopefully finds even more joy in the SCA, and he's going to pass that joy on, and we just keep growing on that space, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And just to see kind of when we were going through the class, it is a little hard to pick up at first. And it almost was like a rolling wave. I was trying to get people to hold it a certain way, and as part of the class in one of the early steps, and then they got it. I saw it in their eyes. They got it. And it was like all the way down the line. Everyone was like, oh, okay. Not to get into the details, but part of the class is you got to keep that front hand very still and bring your backhand forward. A lot of people are still trying to do this. So I saw one person do it, and then I guess the other person got it, and everyone was like, oh, that's completely different. And it was very rewarding to see, pretty much look around, and it just moved like a wave. Everyone got it. And I was like, okay, now we go to step 5. Now it's step 6. So that was one of the very fun points that I remember from
that's the
class.
best.
Yeah. So for folks out there, as of right now, we got, I think, 4 classes up and out there. Let's see if I can add it to the stage here. There she is. It's probably a little small if I'm looking at this right, but you'll probably see them. They're all posted under Golf Wars. If you go and do the Golf Wars, I'm going to go ahead and remove that because it's too small to really catch. But the first 4 classes I have done and up are, let's see, the lead follow class is up. These are the ones on my phone. Al-Anon's Freeze and Fakes, Duke Edwards, and Simon, yours is up as well. I believe I have Cersei's footwork class on my other phone, so I got to download that. And then His Highness Louis has, I think, 2 of the others, maybe even 3 of the others. So I just have to get the files from him, and all of those would be up. Magnus, I'm actually looking really forward to going through your class as well. I have to watch all of them yet. I was so busy. I wanted to watch some classes and I did not get a chance because of all the stuff going on. And like I said, Antigone, I don't know how you were doing it, but there was just activity everywhere going on all the time. I think one thing we learned is maybe give ourselves about 10 minutes after each class to set up the next class, and that would probably help us make sure we test the mics and things like that. It was the first time we ran 2 classes at once, so we absolutely had to give us some more time, and I should have thought of that earlier. But hey, learn, live and learn. I think that's it's in many ways it's better to at least try than to not try at all, right? So
Yeah,
I think
it's much better that it's growing so much that there's a small technical difficulty rather than, hey, we got everything figured out, but we don't have people to, we grew past our means, which is a good thing. It was a suffering from success, which I think is a great way to suffer.
Yeah, and Brannos, that actually kind of throws something out that I've been thinking about for a long time. We've got such a culture in the country about, this kind of fear of failure, and I know you and I have talked about it a lot in the past. Sucking at something is the first step at being kind of good at something eventually, right?
Yep.
And it's the same thing with putting this on. I mean, expecting to go out and have all the videos be perfect and all the classes be perfect and all the things, right? There's going to be some breakage there. There's going to be some struggles, but that's the process. None of us were, well, at least I wasn't. I was a really good fencer right away, but I was not a good heavy fighter right away. It took me years before I didn't suck at heavy. And, and so I think that kind of is a good analog to what we're trying to teach in our classes is, you got to extend yourself a little bit. You got to be willing to fail. You got to be willing to screw up a little bit in order to get that, understanding of the process to actually get better and actually be good. I mean, I know I've lost a hell of a lot more fights than I've won over the years, so maybe we had some snafus on some of the classes, but I think all in all it went well, and it gives us a really good place to jump off from.
I and like I said, I was a little concerned. I wanted to kind of do the golf horse thing. I don't think it would have got done without Antigone, because she was like, "I'll do it," and like, "Let's get it done." And she ran with it, and got class time and on site, all of this stuff. Can't thank you enough for all of that. So
absolutely, you were everywhere that day. I was looking for a spot myself to kind of jump out there and say thanks, Antigone. You were great. You were very easy to work with. You were all over it. Thanks for putting that on. And it wouldn't happen without you. So you rock.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. I was absolutely very happy. I wish I had. So because I was so busy trying to wrangle everything, I actually didn't get to hear like a full class, nor did I get to do any pickup fights. But that, which is totally fine. I had dreams and wishes up in La La Land about that. And knew, but I really wanted Coach's Corner to be successful this year at Gulf-4. I wanted the first time out to look good, to feel good, to go off well, and so that in the future, not only is it work well at Gulf-4s, but like you said, it can expand. Because I really think it's important to expose more people to this group of the incredible encyclopedia of knowledge that's within this group. So I was very happy to be able to be a part of that and make it happen. But the other thing I'm super happy about, and I got to do, is Mid-Realm this year fought with Trimaris. And I am in Mid-Realm now. And so for the first time ever in Gulf-4s that I've been going since, I'm not going to say how long, I actually fought against Stiora, and it was, let me tell you, it was very different, because I fought I fought the field in heavy, and then armored, and then I fought the bridge. It ended up being a bridge in Rapier that had the RBGs and the spears and everything else, and the combat archery. And I'm going to tell you, it was very, very surreal going against some of the people that I've known for over a decade on the melee field. But it was also kind of advantageous because I was able to tell all the mid-realm fighters, and they put up the chain of like, hey, this is what this unit is and what they do, and these are these people that are leading. Oh, this person's not here, so you don't have to worry about this. So it was kind of fun giving them a little bit of insider information.
Things are making sense now. I was like, how do they know? Wait a second, they shouldn't know that.
But what you didn't know, Max, is there was actually a whole gaggle of Onstjorns that had a bounty out of an ice cream sandwich if they found me on the melee field. But nobody could find me because I was wearing mid-realm colors, and I fought.
Not made privy to that information.
And I was fighting left-handed sword and shield, which nobody thinks I fight with a shield. So it was a lot of fun. But yeah.
Well, I ran into that at Penzik this year, Antigone, because of the Purple War. I fought against the East for the first time ever as the King of the Outlands, and it was like, this is so weird. All my people are over there. So I feel you there. But
it was a lot of fun. It was a neat experience. It was very fun. I really enjoyed being able to see it from the other side and then get to witness, to be quite honest, the greatness that is the mid-realm like army structure command. Everybody knew what to do, and of course the people coming to Gulf Wars are kind of your diehards, so they're not, they've been in it a long time. They know very much how to work with each other. But it was very cool to be a part of a smaller right now go for, but army that knew exactly how to work with each other. It was really cool to witness and be a part of. So I did definitely enjoy that aspect of the battles that I got to be in, both on both sides.
I think one of the interesting parts at Gulf Wars was like that field battle when they, we ran the first one and we're like, oh, we better count some numbers, and we did the handshake thing, and I kind of waited until the very end, and the difference was only like 3 to 6 people at most. And I was surprised how close that was. Now that changed throughout every day day by day. That changed just because of who came out and who partied too much and who had the big parties and all that jazz. But it was really interesting. The field battles, I think they started one way, but they kind of ended the other way. The other side kind of figured out what was going on, and they made some adjustments, and so it was really nice to see that balance out. I think on Tuesday, is that the town battle? I can't even tell you what it was. There was the town
battle was not a bridge battle. It was like a bigger bridge battle with
that was interesting.
Was that your first time doing it with that style where they had the pure only mixed with the siege and the nun?
Yeah.
Because I know I saw y'all a couple of times on the other side in the pure only.
I did. I got on one side and I got it with everybody, but there was just no spear room in there at all from our side. We were just crushing in on the doors.
Mm-hmm.
And so because we had to try to get to the back gates, and I think we took the fronts and just never moved much from there. So I went over on the other side and just spear dueled with some friends. And, the other side, there's a little bit more movement on the other side, but realistically, we all know what's, that's just going to be a give and take back and forth, with
what would have been your far right? Is that the one you're talking about, the pure only?
The knights, the river styled side or whatever.
It's so hilarious to hear the difference between kind of my squire and some of my friends that were fighting in the middle versus what we were having. They're like, this is the roughest fight. This is brutal. And over here on the pure only side, we're like, our squires aren't here to take. I'll take that. My squire's not here to see me take that. I'll take it. You take that.
Exactly.
But I'll go back. They're like, everyone's being so polite over here. And then meanwhile, I hear horror stories from the other two. I'm
telling you, I was over in the other ones for a while, and I was just getting crushed over and over again. I'm like, I am too old to stand over here.
Yeah.
So I went over there. It's like, oh, this is much nicer.
So are you trying to say that unbelts are cutthroat?
Yeah, I'm telling you, they're just like they must want it way more than me.
I looked over and I saw just someone get ran over. I was like, no, I'm fine right here, spear dueling these guys. We come over here, we're having a good, cozy time. We're all taking threes, That's a real fight over here. We're just having fun. So for all
It's
the
funny,
people,
Magnus. I think you missed earlier. I was telling them that this is the first time that I haven't fought heavy or rapier at a major war in about 38 years.
Mm.
And a lot of other stuff going on, but I got to marshal some, and whoo, I saw some wild stuff while marshaling, and it was like, yeah, I was thinking a couple times, I was like, yeah, my armor's back in camp, and I'm okay with that right now.
Yeah. For all those that become, a martial peer, if there is a scenario I'd golf again, I'll advise everyone as a new martial peer to definitely at least go try the peer only lane. It's probably gonna be quite the contrast from what you did. And if you want to go back into the grind and the grum, it's right there for you. You just walk over to the other side. But having that of only martial peers, it was we didn't need to blow each other up. We could all be polite. One of my friends, Sir Tristan from Glenaben, he stabbed me. I went to stab him. He kind of blocked it. I barely grazed him. He barely grazed me. I was like, I'll take that. He was like, wait, well, then I'm going to take yours. And we both walked back.
Yeah, exactly.
So you don't see that in the mixed one. And I assume you don't see that in the only unbelt one or the only non-peer. So
yeah,
just a difference of perspective and experience. I would advise everyone that if you are able to try, at least try it.
One day.
Yeah,
one
no,
day.
absolutely.
One day. So I'm really sad that I missed the ravine battle on Thursday, because I heard this ravine battle was everybody. Really? Because everybody came back and everybody told me all Thursday afternoon and all Friday how great the ravine was and how much fun they had and how pleasant it was. So I was just like, well, I do really love the ravine. And they put the Rapier Rose tournament on top of the ravine. So all of us fighting roses ended up being not in the ravine for the most part. And so that kind of sucked missing it, but I was really sad because I was like, oh, I missed a good ravine year. Dang it. It would be the one year I don't fight in it.
maybe from your perspective, maybe the people you were talking to had a different experience. This was my fifth consecutive ravine battle. And this was all the others were about right here. This was definitely the roughest for us. My unit got bonked pretty hard. People were getting hit in the back of the head with glaives full force. People were getting ran over, hip checked. It was a little rough for us. For my, I fight with Steps, which is a barony in Anciora. Our company is Ironwood. His Majesty gives us toughest battles to his strongest soldiers. That's what we told ourselves. So we had some tough battles and we did our best. But we definitely all came out pretty bumped and bruised. And a couple of people had to leave the field.
But I heard good things. Like it wasn't nasty, mean. It was just everybody was bringing.
I did paperwork, so I'll leave it at that. I did paperwork.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Well, I will definitely.
It was pretty rough for us. This isn't the time or place to go into details, but for our perspective, from
the rest of our Outlanders and see what their takeaway was on that.
Well, and I think the ravine is one of those areas, one of those fields where kind of like maybe similar to the woods, where some sections are really friendly and nice depending upon the lineup and who is there, versus other sections depending upon the lineup and who is there can be really brutal. Because I know not this year or last year, but the year before in the ravine, I ended up leaving the field because it was awful. The attitudes were awful. The brutality was unnecessary.
This was worse than that year for us.
Really? Wow.
So,
and
I was with you. I was next to you during that one. This was worse.
Yeah.
So from our perspective.
So. Okay. So
you get some of that at Penzic in the woods battle up the hill.
Exactly.
Too.
And that's
this pocket's really cool and this pocket's really ugly. And
when we had some new enthusiastic fighters and about 5-10 minutes in, I was like, hey, you either need to sit out or realize you're in a real fight. Like that, if you're gonna go out there, but this ain't fighter practice and this isn't the first battles you've had the rest of the week. You're in a real fight now. So just you got to mind, if you want to go out there and know what it's like, that's what it's like. And I have not been to Penzic, but I hear it can be, like y'all said, some spots can be particularly rambunctious. yeah, I felt like the area we were in, everyone was throwing 10s and everyone wanted 10s, and
Mhm.
it
That's
happens. It
unfortunate.
happens. Adrenaline, heat, excitement. It happens. But
Yeah,
you know,
it can, and I will say one of the things that I think the ravine does for me every year is tell me how much cardio I'm not doing in the gym. Every year I leave the ravine and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna have to start running more and doing way more rowing or something because this is terrible. And the few years that I've made it the entirety from lay on to the thing being called and not stopped is definitely the years that gave me the gym motivation for the whole rest of the year. So thank you, Ravine, for that.
if y'all want to
Lie,
get
that's
good for
my
anyone,
favorite thing about golf. I train at 6,200 feet, and I love going to golf because
No,
it's like,
well,
especially those of us Outlanders that all train at over 5,000 feet. We go to golf, and it's like, yeah. The first time I took my Squire there, he was like, "What is going on, boss?" And I was like, "We've been training hard for Crown at over 6,000 feet. It shows down here." And so that's actually one of my favorite things about being there is it's like, hey, I feel young again.
so
I don't
I
feel
have
like I'm pushing 60 at Go 4.
I have a question. So this year Gulf Wars didn't have the big fort. It's been torn down and it didn't have a replacement necessarily. So Logan, who is His Majesty of Trimaris, actually brought a modular kind of fort like thing that we used in multiple battles. So I actually didn't get to see the Friday armored fort battle at all. So how was that this year? How was that different from having the big fort? And how did you guys like the modularity?
it felt. Oh, if you want to go, Brannos.
No, I wanted to hear this too because I was
Yeah.
packing up and out on Friday,
Yeah.
so I
Yeah.
really wanted to hear how that went. I saw some pictures of it, and it looked like there was a lot of spear dueling over the walls and stuff.
So Antigone will understand this one. Anstiorans will understand this one. If you're not from Anstiora and you haven't been to BAM, it's basically 3 BAM gates. It's kind of the best way to. So I love the BAM gate. It felt like 3 of those. So it was when we were the defending side, you had 5 lives. That was my favorite battle. The defending side on that Friday morning. My unit was pretty, or the Ironwood, the unit I fight in rather. We were pretty bumped and bruised, and we had basically said, "Hey, we can't take war boards. We can't. We're not. We were pretty torn. We were so torn up from the ravine, we couldn't go in force. So we said, "Hey, do not consider us a full unit. We're a secondary support unit with some spears and some smaller shields." And they said, "Great, we got a spot for you." Put us in a spot at the very end. And on the defending side, that was my favorite scenario of the whole war by far. Super great, tons of fun. I like the way you wouldn't be surprised. The walls only collapsed a couple of times. They only had a call hold to fix them once or twice, and luckily Duke Timothy was out there to reach up with his 9 feet total wingspan and fix it and pull it down. But it was pretty great for what we had and what limited time and being a modular pop-up unit. It was pretty great. The walls were great. I was picking up little throwing axes. People would come up with me a spear thinking they were going to get me, and I would throw a little axe at them. It was great. So that was the most fun side. The attacking side, things changed a little bit, so I won't go into too much of that. But the defending side, by far my favorite scenario of the whole war. The most fun I had the whole war. I had a glorious death for my last life, which is all a fighter can ask for.
Yep. No, it looked good. The pictures look good. I was like, those walls look like they had a good tilt on them, so they look like they stood for a while. It actually, those are the kinds I like personally as well. I didn't care for the weird town, not a town, river, broken bridge thing that they had, but I thought that battle would have been one I would have enjoyed.
And on the res side, the way they did it normally, and the way that we've done this in Anstiora, attackers usually get usually I think it's 3 lives. You get 2 reses, 3 lives total. And then the attackers, defenders get 3 lives total. Attackers have unlimited lives. So usually it's, as soon as you go to here, you can res. They were
Right.
on, I think it was a 2 minute or minute 30, whatever it was. If you were behind the line, you were alive. If you were on this side of the line when they called it, you had to wait the whole minute after. So the marshals would be like 30 seconds. And we see our friends, they're tired, they're coming back, and then just 30 seconds. Dive across the line. So then when they call good, now you have a whole wave coming. So I really like the way they did that. That's a new scenario. I've never a new type of scenario and a way of respawning. I really enjoyed. And from the defending side, it was super fun because we're like, we're thinning them, they're getting tired. Oh, here they all come. So that was a super fun new thing.
Yeah. No, I kind of wish they had that on Thursday instead of Friday. My knees just won't take the ravine. Well, my knees will, but I'm also I don't want to take a header going on my shoulder in the ravine. The ravine in the past can usually the most brutal fights at golf course.
It's definitely 100% in my experience the most brutal fight and the most taxing, and typically most of the time after it, you could find me just in a goo pile in the front of my tent, gasping for breath with all my armor, looking like I exploded a loot box of armored fighter around me. It's somebody bringing me a drink and a slice of pizza, because that tended to be our pizza night, where they would just bring us all pizza. We'd all sit in a big giant pile and kind of commiserate about the pain of the ravine. I will say the few times that they put both ravines on Fridays were absolutely the worst. Like, those were just so terrible, because you're already beat up, the whole week is done, and you're on your last kind of gasping breath. And that's for those of us who go to the gym and work out and train. I can only imagine the people that weren't. And so we were having like a lot more injuries the later they put ravine on the schedule in the week. There are more injuries. So I was glad they put it on Thursday. It was a little bit earlier. At least it wasn't Friday. But I kind of agree with you that I wish it was a lot earlier in the war. That way I could get it kind of, when I'm fresh and have all the energy at the beginning of the war, I could go ahead and knock that one out and then kind of enjoy the rest of them.
Guys like us, knees aren't beat up from going up and down the hill all week.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. So
because we were the Outlands was literally at the very top up by RV parking, and so it was like, by the end of the week it was like, okay.
When they run it hot dog, that's when or they run it I say hamburger, when you're having to run uphill to the res, that's when it's that's when it's bad.
Those strips were rough. So we don't have any rapier fighters on here other than that fought in the rapier points other than Magnus. Did you fight in that kind of bridge sort of?
The way this year was so staggered, I couldn't even get inspected. I didn't even have time to get inspected. I was very disappointed that they couldn't have done a better job. I understand there's only so much time, but I was pretty sad. I love supporting the rapier army, and I'm sad that I couldn't support it. So no, unfortunately, none this year.
Yeah, it was definitely a little difficult. I would really say that if you are unhappy with the Warpoint schedule, the master / main coordinator of the schedule cannot do anything about the Warpoint schedule. It is not up to them. It is up to the Trimaran and Onstjorn Crown. So if you're disgruntled about it, your emails need to go to them, not the scheduling people, because they don't have anything to do with that. Just so you guys know. But
just for clarification, for next year, should I advise everyone to message?
The Onstjorn, whoever's going to be Crown at next year's Gulf War for Onstjorn Trimaran. And typically they have the negotiations done in November. So you probably want to start hitting them up in like September, October with your, hey, I really didn't like this, or, we really didn't that I really want to enjoy Gulf Wars, and this would make it more enjoyable for me if the schedule was a little bit more like this. And I know we try different things every year, and some things are good for other people and not for this person. The next year it's good for this person, not that person. So I know they try very hard to make sure that the 3,000 people that attend get to really enjoy their vacation. But definitely, in my opinion, feedback is better than no feedback. And so since you didn't get to go, I got to go to the one rapier Warpoint that I was really excited about. And that was it ended up being a bridge where they use the modular pieces that they use kind of for the town and fort. And this one was it's not the first time, but it's definitely the first time we've seen a prolific amount of rapier spears on the field, especially in close quarters. Along with, we had combat archery, including bows and crossbows, and we had the rubber gun pieces. And we had, and on that vein, we had like long rifles, we had short handguns, we actually had a rubber band cannon. Yes, there was a rubber band cannon that was on the field. So it would shoot a bunch of really big rubber bands all on like this mass. And it didn't go very far because I think they need to work on a little bit much. But I actually saw so in that scenario, if you were a member of the Order of Defense, I can't remember if it was also, I believe it was also Shiv. You were allowed to knee walk in the water across the river. If you weren't, then you had to stay on one of the either goat paths or the bridges. And so I actually got to witness one of the members of the Order of Defense knee walking up and the cannon going off right on them, and them getting hit with like 10 rubber band guns all at once, and just this splatting pile. It was we were all laughing. Everybody stopped and laughed because it was quite funny. But it was kind of cool to see. They took all the spears and the projectiles and they put it only on one bridge lane. So if you didn't want to participate with that, then you didn't have to. There were two other bridge lanes, or one other bridge lane, and the goat path, which is very narrow. So that was kind of cool. And then they were limiting how far you could shoot across, because you could shoot across the river and across the wall with your guns and archery, but they had a certain line that you couldn't shoot past it. And I think they did a really good job of the marshals did a really good job of conveying what was and wasn't allowed on there. I will say that it's really difficult for rapier fighters to feel the rubber bands hitting them, especially if they're wearing, the shark mail or multiple layers of fabric, the leather on their gloves and everything else. And some are wearing their cut and thrust gear, maybe. It was really hard to feel them and even know when you were getting hit, unless it was hitting you like right square in the eyes, or you saw it coming and hitting you. So I really wish that hopefully we come up with some sort of way to make that a little bit more viable, so that the people who are really interested in doing that don't get so frustrated, because there was definitely on the Trimaran side more people with the guns and less spears, and now the Trimarans, or the Odstorn side, they had more spears, way less guns and combat archery. And so I definitely, on our side, they were getting a little frustrated with people not calling it, but in their defense, they couldn't feel it. So, it's kind of difficult. Yep. But all in all, everybody had a really great time. I think the only detractor I saw with the rapier battles was, I think that battle started almost 2 hours late. At least an hour and a half that I'm aware of, which the rapier battle was still going on when they were trying to open the Merides and Glenalbin courts, which was pretty crazy. So if anything, battle starting on time was probably the biggest complaint people had, as far as I could hear, on the rapier side. So, but
just
really
anecdotally, to touch on that rubber band gun, just something from what I heard from my friends is I was seeing, I said that sounds pretty cool, pretty interesting. I would love to kind of get a rubber band gun or see how that. And then, again, just anecdotally, people were like, hey, the way they are right now, if you want to do range in rapier, just get yourself a crossbow. You're going to be frustrated with a rubber band gun. It's not, again, and people were saying the same thing. It's not that they're not calling it. We're asking them to call a 1 ounce piece of rubber while they're having 4 layers of linen or fabric on. It's just not, it's, so I'm looking forward to the creative solutions the community will come up with to make that.
I am sure they will come up with something. In the meantime, I really loved my gun because I went and played with it. And I went knowing that you couldn't feel it and that none of my shots would really be taken. That wasn't the point. The point was getting to be cool, like stay with the gun and shooting like that. And for me, it was the experience, not the actual it doing anything or having any impact.
You got to go the bandolier style, like the pirates that have like 6 of them, so you can.
Yes, there's actually we have a guy in Mid-Realm, and he had bandoliers and stuff, and like had the whole part, and like they popped open. It was very, very cool. I know SC is not a LARP, but it definitely, that battle definitely filled my little LARP heart up with joy, seeing all of that, everybody's costumes and people's making stuff up and kind of that. So it was a lot of fun, in my opinion.
Their creative anachronism.
That's there you are. Well, and his guns. I mean, I saw his guns. They look really good, and I love that he has lock mechanism where you have to like pull the special key out to turn it and do all this other crap like a period gun for that time period. So, I mean, good for him for like doing it all the way. You know, I've seen others that are going out with goofier stuff. These were definitely nice. You know, we got about 15 minutes left. One thing I'd like to cover is I'd like to cover a little bit of pickup. The good part was, since I didn't go to the ravine, we got out on Thursday and started pickup relatively early, and I got to run into a few friends from Kaid and even a couple of mid-realmers that were going to fight. And then it just started filling up. You know, Al-Anon came out and a bunch of other people came out. It was a great day, and I kind of felt bad, but it was a great day to actually get time with your friends that you didn't normally get. I had done pickup on Wednesday as well, so I burned myself out on a bunch of people, but I was a little more picky on Thursday since all of them were there, and I think this is something people have to remember a little bit too, is that we want to get training in as well. So sometimes when we're picky, it's not because it's, thank you. It's, sorry guys, I'm old fashioned. So, it was, I hadn't fought Al-Anon forever, and there you are. And I got a chance for probably, I don't even know how long that fight went with him.
He's a beast too.
It was a very long
he's
one.
On another, he's
I
on
got pickup with him
level.
too, so
he's wild.
Yeah, it was interesting because we had done a bunch of pickup. He had some. It was funny because Edward came over. Ed Gray came over and he was like, "Hey, you have your buffer swords?" And I ran back to camp. Our camps were close. Grabbed my 2 buffer swords. I didn't see those things the rest of the day. People, Gabe and all of these people were using them everywhere to do training and teaching. And it just, the whole community that was out there that day was really nice. Everybody working with each other. I know a bunch of people that had come out of the ravine all burned out and stuff, and they were still out there playing. It was definitely a real great day.
Very positive vibe. I was hanging around talking to a bunch of people I know, and everybody seemed like they were having a great time and a lot of sharing of information.
Yeah, it was
Brannos.
fun. Yeah.
I just wanted, because this was my first time fighting Duke Allianon. Does he hit you from your spear range, or is that just me? I'm just curious.
No, he hits you from your spear range.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, I'm not used to getting
I fought
hit
him a
in the
few
arm
years
from
ago.
my spear range.
I fought him a few years ago in the Outlands Prize tournament, and I went 1-5 in the bear pit against him. He's just,
you have to know your range, and the trick with him, like, I know you guys at school, you got a little bit of jump into range stuff, but the problem is his range is so far you can't jump that far. You can't even jump into your range to throw shit.
And he's very precise with his shots.
Oh, he is, and he'll just throw them as fast as he can. And it's really hard to just kind of cruise through a blow like that because he's already on his second or third. So
and he does a lot of because he has so much mobility. He'll miss here, and instead of doing a draw through, do the back blade. So I'm not used to blocking that angle. Who throws that? No one. So especially with 7-foot arms. So it was a very fun puzzle though to work with.
I'm glad you got time with him because those are the people you want to get time with, right?
Yeah.
So
I was hoping he would be on to talk about it because again, those were some amazing pickups.
He actually pinged me.
Especially shorter guys like me and Brannos and my former squire. Like he's just like my God,
I'm 6'3",
it's bad
make a
enough,
difference.
but
It doesn't
I
make a
think
difference.
Al-Anon is even bigger than that.
So
No, I think he's
I'm
got to
lucky.
be 6'7". So
I think he is like 6'6" or 6'7".
he's
I
got to be
don't.
6'7", or he's not 6'6".
No, he's not. He's not over 6'7". I don't think. Then
Okay, he's got to be
6'7".
6'7" then. So
Okay, yeah, because I had a squire that was 6'7", just much bigger than him.
okay.
So, but I've been lucky. I've been able to fight Elenon my whole career. So it's a lot of times the trick with him is you have to be very patient, and you cannot run at him. You have to pull him into you.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I've only seen him less than a handful of times, so it's not like I've seen
Yeah.
him a billion times. It's like every
No,
time it's like, oh, that's right.
Well,
It's this guy.
You know my
Yeah,
stance,
I've seen
Brannos.
for
I
2 or 3
stand right
years.
here. For him, I have to block out here and force him
Yeah.
to come inside, and then it's a
Right.
dangerous game because he transitions from inside to out so fast. So it was the timing and the speed I had to work with to do anything to make him. It was such a fun fight. I wish I could have done that all day.
Yeah, even if it's frustrating sometimes, he's a hell of a fun fight because he's just got so much cool stuff going on. You're like,
well, and he's a very smart fighter too. So
yeah,
what we'll do is
sitting in on his class was a blast too. I was glad to get a chance to sit in on his class. I'm like, that's what you were doing to me.
Yeah, so we'll try to get him out. He definitely loves talking about this. Maybe we'll talk. Maybe we'll get him and talk about that fight with you. That way, because I think other people would like to hear how you get into that fight and stuff like that. Like I said, I'm lucky enough. I've had a lot of experience with them. I've had to, I've had him in the ends of Candlemas year after year after year after year. He said it the other day. He's like, somebody asked him, he's like, you ever win it? I thought you won a Candlemas. He's like, no, I always had to fight through Rongvalder and Brannos, both of them. So, it's a hard way to go through sometimes. So.
I would love to hear like the specifics about his sword length, like kind of just a little deep, what size shield he uses, because he fights that very kind of a refuse style. Most people are up here. He was out here, and I was like, I don't like the sword being that far back,
Right.
So
And
it's a very interesting. I've never seen it before. I fought a lot of people. It's so far removed from my pool of experience that to have that experience, that circle of experience expanded that much was it was a terrible privilege to enjoy.
Yeah, it was. It was. I was lucky. It ended up. It was interesting how it all ended up. We started fighting, and everybody ended up like slowly. Everyone else stopped fighting. And then even the few that were going when we were going stopped, and then we had a giant crowd watching for a while. And then Gabe was like, "Hey," he wanted to give me some. So, and I tell you, Gabe is. I didn't realize how strong Gabe is, but man, he was throwing me around. I tell you, I get inside, but he get that Madu on my sword, and he'd throw, and I just trying to keep my feet was rough. So he's. That's a great fight. His movement stuff is gorgeous. I tell you, it's so I had 2 great ones, and then Sven beat the shit out of me, as son of a bitch, with sword and shield. And we were just being nice. At the end of the day, it was great. It was really nice passes, and we're just chilling out because we never get time together anymore. And he finally got to this point where it's like, he snatched me, and I do this.
Is he scooping you?
Oh, he scooped me. Like, I tell you, after the 3rd time he scooped me, I literally put it out there on purpose. I'm like, what am I going to do? And then, so he scooped it and hit me again. I'm like, okay, I think I can stop this now. And I finally stopped it with footwork. But, oh, man, I was like, after the 3rd time, I'm like, you son of a bitch.
That's funny.
So
well, it's kind of funny because you talk about Gabe, and I'm kind of in the same situation that you are with, what you were talking about before. Being more of a West Coast guy, I see those guys a ton, and they are very strong, but their footwork is amazing. And they both kind of come off as just your standard dude, right? But they are really smart, and they've got a really great take on how a lot of that. They're second generation. Their dad, Robert, has won crowns in 2 different kingdoms. They were both dukes before their father. which is hilarious.
Yeah,
And,
I totally.
And so they're really smart, but yeah, they're very strong, very smart, very quick, and their base is great. They've got great footwork, so they're kind
Yeah.
of scary there.
So, and the good part is, the
Yeah, let's try
footwork
to
didn't
address
bother
that
me.
question.
Which question you got?
Antigone had a question about somebody said, do you mind if I do this, Antigone? Or
No, go right ahead. Because
question, I don't know who
feel
had
like
the
you guys
question.
probably
It
know
says, I
better than me.
saw the upcoming show and I'm excited to hear it, especially discussing battles. It was my first time fighting in Gulf Wars, and one thing I noticed is that it seems some kingdoms worked as units better than others. So my question is, how do we facilitate and practice war coordination? And as somebody who's lived in 7 kingdoms and moved 9 times, not all kingdoms are created equal when it comes to war fighting. The East and the Middle, in my opinion, are the gold standard compared to every other kingdom. The other kingdoms have their strengths and weaknesses that they're really great at, but as far as having across the board, 2 armies that are just, everybody that you bring has got a certain level of expertise and knowledge and willingness to kind of come in and take one for the team. I feel like the East and the Mid, because of 50 plus years of Pennsic, they've just created that vibe, and then you've got Anstiora that's really, really good with their big shields, Callanteers like that. We in the Outlands are known mainly as a bunch of cowboys who run around with spears, right? We are not very well organized. We just basically play hero SCA. And so that's something that's kind of, in my opinion, very, very dependent on your kingdom's overall personality and the leadership and organization within your kingdom. If that helps. You're on mute again, Brannos.
I think the big key is that the East and Mid realm grew up at Pennsic, right? And we had giant war groups. I mean, we had our standard households were, and that 20 to 50 people.
Then some kingdoms bring to war.
Well, and I'm lucky enough. We're still one of the big groups out there. We bring, including people we friends and things like that. We usually have that 80 to 100 people in my group alone, right? So, and it's there. We just, when you're in that space for so long, you develop into that space. But it also limits you, because sometimes when you're too big, then your movement slows down, your corners, you lose the outside, corner danger. You kind of end up in that space where you get rolled up a little bit easier. You're not nearly as nimble as a lot of other kingdoms are now. So I think the way we fight wars now compared to the way we did is significantly different, and actually hurts some of the bigger groups.
Well, and a lot of that, Brannos, is, it's kind of like, we all have said, there's no substitute for helmet time, right? But
that's it.
Even more than that, being in those scrums, in those battles, getting bounced around, trying to recover from the situation, dealing with the tidy bull of death, the first group that gets their shit together after everything blows up usually wins. And that is hard to do unless you've just been in there and, basically been in the spin cycle in the dryer 2, 10, 25, 200 times. You know what I mean? It's hard for your brain to process all that data because there's so many things coming at you in a melee, especially right up there in the, in the scrum where the 2 main lines are coming together. So, that's something that it's hard to teach to do it. You just kind of have to be in there and get that experience, and then you can fine tune it, I think.
Yeah, I think the key is you look at like Magnus's class, and I'm going to let you talk in a second, but I'm going to first say, it's classes like Magnus and things like that who teach the core fundamentals, right? And develop that esprit de corps and that trust in themselves. And then all you have to do is develop vision instead of develop everything on the field, compared to someone who goes out with spear every melee event they go to, which is 5 or 6 a year, and expect to be good at it. Right? Go ahead, Magnus.
Well, I was going to say, you're talking about getting that hat time in, and I agree that the only way to kind of get really, really good in a melee scenario is to get melee hat time. and that's twofold. One, showing up to the events, but in this, I'm going to ask you this question, Brannos, because I've been saying numbers, and I want to make sure I'm not getting my numbers mixed up. As a kingdom in the middle, how often do y'all do war practice versus y'all's regular practice? Because I know that it's a lot more than a lot of other kingdoms do, and that's something where I want to try to bring Nance to your
Like practice, like events or practice.
melee practice.
Practice.
How often are y'all
Oh,
doing melee practices as a kingdom?
So
like
it used
kingdom
to be-
sanctioned.
Oh, we don't do. So we don't have a lot of kingdom. Our kingdom's so big, we have a lot of melee events through the summer,
Okay.
right? In fact, pretty much all our summer is all melee events. So you have more than 4 events a weekend, probably doing some type of melee sometimes. And
Somewhere
I'm
in the
probably
kingdom.
overestimating it. Yeah, there's always an event, at least one melee event going on in the kingdom on the weekend.
And it's very similar to that in the East from the time I spent in the East, because basically the East and the Mid circle that date on their calendar, right?
Yeah.
And for a window, from say April, May until Pennsic, like that is the focus within the kingdom, is getting as many of your people ready to go out there and kick the East's ass or kick the Middle's ass or whatever. And so like it is very much a hive mind on where like I would drive 2 hours to Southern New Jersey once a month. Southern Region Sundays, once a month, we would have everybody would come from hours around, and we'd have 100 guys at a melee practice.
And that's a
Wow.
practice, not even an event.
Wow.
Yeah, it was just
Right.
a practice, just a Sunday practice. That was where their regular Sunday practice is, and one day a month it would get co-opted for the regional melee, and they were doing the same thing up in Boston and Quebec and wherever. And so we have some of that on a smaller scale in the Outlands, because we are very much a melee kingdom as well. And so I would say ours in that lead up, we're not necessarily so much leading up to Pennsic though. We only have a fairly small contingent that goes to Pennsic.
Right.
For us, it's more, Great Western War, formerly Estrella, now Phoenix War, getting ready for those. So we're more in the kind of the
well, and you have your own war too, right? So
right, and then Battlemore is 4th of well, it's not 4th of July anymore, but it's in the summer. And so like we kind of do that, and we also have regional melee practices, and so that's a good way to kind of get that together, is find a bunch of like-minded people and and get whoever your general is for your kingdom and have them start organizing your melee practices. Like our general and our kingdom warlord have been putting together all of our melee practices over the last few months.
So does that cover the question overall, do we think?
Sounds like the main thing is get it, even small, even if you can only get 5 people, do a 2-on-3, and then the loser goes to the other side. And then the next week, if you get up 7 people, now it's 3-on-4, loser loses a person, kind of do whatever you can with what you got. And because, the things y'all are talking about, especially during our summer, we don't have 4 melee practices.
You can't even go outside in the summer.
Huh?
You can't even go outside in the summer. It's too hot.
Well, yeah, that does make it hard. But
actually, Magnus, are you talking about Border March melees?
Well, I'm just saying in general, it's
right,
not.
But you were
we
referencing
do
BAM
melees,
earlier.
But it's not as much
is,
as our.
Is
of
that
our
Border March
culture.
melees you're talking about?
That's we do Border March, BAM or War of the Rams now, but that happens in November, and that, and there's usually 1 or 2 other events, and that. So we're talking about 4 or 5 melee events over the year for us. So that is something me and some of my folks and some of the folks in the kingdom are trying to change. I know we're kind of I can't say too much right now. We're trying to work with some other baronies to have some barony on barony friendly skirmishes to kind of get that melee going a little bit more. And then, like you said, the things y'all are talking about, that system's been in place for a long time. It took a while to get that. People who aren't in that area of culture can't expect that to happen overnight. It takes a while to build that. So it will, if you're in an area without that, it'll take a while to build up to that. But again, do what you can with what you got, I think.
And if you kind of, like you were talking about with those, 2-on-3 or 3 on whatever, or back and forth, and you swap everybody out, You know, that's kind of one of the things is even if you don't fight next to this person all the time, having a common kind of style of fighting. And then that way, when you get next to somebody, you have kind of a lingua franca, kind of a shorthand, if you will, where you can already like, oh, okay, you're one of these guys. Bam, we can start working on that. And the reason I was asking about Border March, Magnus, is I came up in Antigone. Border March spring melees, when they used to do it twice a year, was my first big melee event in 1988.
Oh,
So I love that. Do they still have the castle there?
the castle is still there.
Nice. So yeah, I think the East does the weekend ones better than we do here in the mid realm. But I like our practice is usually we don't do it as much anymore. I know in the past, every Sunday in the summers where we'd go to a melee on Saturday, and then Sunday would be melee practice in the park. That was just what we did. Now we're probably a little less than that, but we're always training some melee. So we'll have spear classes. The combat archery guys are out there, doing drills. We'll have shields running at them. We'll play hide and seek in like behind trees, and they'll try to shoot you as soon as you move. All of those things. They're still out there practicing the things. We just may not organize to do the melee itself. But normally we, at least once or twice a month, we're on a Sunday, we're like, okay, let's go do some fields. Let's go do some bridges, and stuff like that. So.
And we have certain events in our kingdom that every year they're an annual event. The Sunday for that event, like our local midwinter here in Albuquerque, Sunday is Albuquerque word practice every year. Everybody knows that that's what's going to be. Sunday is set up. Heavy guys are over here, rapier guys are over here. Bam! Everybody shows up just for the war practice, right? And so there's one up in Denver, and there one down in El Paso. And so every year we know if you go to that event, there's going to be a war practice. So it kind of creates that thing in your mind. And
Cool.
I don't know, are we done, Brannos?
Yeah, we're right on the time now, a little bit after. I thank everybody out there. I think
just one quick thing. Magnus Esquire won the Rattan Rose tournament.
Yeah, the Meridian Rose. I want
The Meridian
next
Rose
time we get
tournament.
a chance, we can talk about it. I'm obviously wanted to talk about it incredibly biased, but Centurion.
No, I'm going to tell you,
Skavis.
we'll take 5 minutes, talk about it.
So
everybody knows. Wait, before you start, everybody knows there are so many tournaments at Gulf Wars. It's incredible, but the Rose tournaments are really big there, and the champion tournaments are really big there.
But I love the fact that it was non-belts.
Yeah, I saw the non-belt. Yeah, exactly. So
my former squire wasn't there this year, but his squire was there, and so I got to be there for my grand squire. And she's very new, has only fought in a handful of kind of big things like that.
Yeah.
And the other fighters, the back and forth interaction that I saw, because I also had a couple of other fighters that I train with and I work with in different pools. And so I was kind of running back and forth and checking on multiple fighters. And I thought it was a great vibe. I thought it was a really great atmosphere. I didn't see any usually in tournaments like that, there's always some egregious stuff. You're like, oh, you're really not going to take that, bro? Come on. Right. And I didn't really see that. In fact, what I saw was mostly a lot of good conversation and a lot of very positive interaction. So I wanted to call the tournament out for that, because I know we were talking earlier about the ravine being kind of ugly, but I thought that the Meridian Rose tournament was one of the cleanest, most positive vibe tournaments I've seen in a hot minute.
This is again my fifth golf. So this is I fought in my first 2 years. I fought in those two. Past 3 years I've watched. This was the cleanest one. Last year's was the second cleanest the year before. So it's gotten better and better each year. And I know I talked to some people from Meridians, and they said their goal is to have this be the cleanest tournament in the known world. That is what it's known for. And I think they're well on their way to making it that. The camaraderie, the cleanness, the communication, everything you expect out of up and coming fighters. It was beautiful.
I thought it was super. I really did. And I think a lot of that is, kind of this show and the advent of us taking so much video of all the fights. If somebody's out there being a jerk, like, you can kind of go back to them and say, look, bro, it's right here. Don't act like that. Don't be that guy.
Mm.
You know, and I hope that it's a movement toward us. I mean, you don't got to hit me with 11. You know, you hit me a clean 7-8, I'm taking it every time. Right? We've all got work and, you know, jobs on Monday and insurance and
People to provide for.
people
like,
to provide for. We do not need to be out there just absolutely destroying people, blowing off shots, all of that. And I thought that Rose tournament was a great example of people, you know, throwing and taking clean, you know, upper medium level shots, and a lot of communication and treating each other with, you know, courtesy, dignity, and respect. And I thought it was cool.
Yeah, I tell you, you know, it's interesting because that tournament went through its cycle, and it went through a cycle that was hard for a while. And, you know, my first golf course was 3. So not that I go every year, but it had some bad times, and they really turned it around. The Roses have done a wonderful job at, you know, really helping work together to motivate some people that maybe didn't even do that great, because they're allowed to pick some folks to, like, the winners kind of move on, but sometimes they can pick another person to move them on as well. And,
there's two winners. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I thought
the one's
that
the prowess and the other one's the Roses'
Yep.
choice. They pick the one that's the most courteous. It's the Roses,
Exactly.
you know, most chivalric fighter. Yeah.
Which was awesome. I think it was a great idea when they added that. And it really turned that tournament around. It wasn't great in the past, but now in the last number of years, it's really, really good.
When
I'm happy to hear it went really well this year.
Yeah, and I've seen some of that with some of the Squires tournaments at the Major Wars that are kind of brutal, you know. And it was funny, last year, I think it was at Penzic, the Squires tournament was and the Rose tournament was really good. You know what I mean? And so I think, you know, if we can kind of continue that that movement in that direction of, you know, we're in a game based on, you know, chivalry. Let's be chivalrous. Let's act like it.
And that's what I told my squire. He had the honor of fighting for the Queen as his Rose. I told him, hey, are you?
That's awesome.
I forgot who had reached out first. I think I said, hey, are you interested in fighting the Rose tournament? And he said yes. And I was like, let me try to find you a Rose. Well, here's the first Rose I know. I was like, hey, Your Majesty, you picked a fighter yet? So some of our people coordinated, and my squire ended up fighting for her Majesty. I had to tell him. I grabbed him and I was like, hey, you represent me all the time, right? But now not only are you representing the Queen, you're representing all of Antigone right now. Like, you cannot, you know, there's mistakes happen, but you're not having them this tournament. You understand? Yes, sir. Okay, good. And he went out there, he was the prowess winner of his division.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, went out. He had to fight another person, lefty on lefty, in kind of the quarterfinals. I've been fighting him lefty nonstop. So luckily, he was good in that one. And then he went up against in the finals. And in the very finals, he went a little bit to sleep on the first pass and got hit in the head. If you go back and watch that fight, if you want to know how to kill a lefty, that first pass is what you should do every time. And I kind of gave him the side eyes, kind of looked at him, and he's like, okay. And then he came back and won the next two and won. So
nice.
That was a very proud moment for me. I'm happy he was able to, a very proud moment for him. His wife and kids ran out and hugged him. You know, the Queen went up and congratulated him. So it worked out for all of us. It was a very, very happy moment for all of us.
Awesome.
Yeah, I was really, really pleased. Like I said, my grand squire fought for my wife. You know, so it's all in the family. But then, you know, we had, you know, 4 or 5 people that were in the tournament that I have, you know, coached, trained with, and just friends with, what have you. And so I was able to kind of go around. And then we kind of debriefed it later on in camp. And all of the people that we had in the tournament came back, you know, win, lose, whatever, came back with it was cool.
Yeah.
You know, and that's what we need, you know, especially for these younger fighters. My grand squire is 20 years old. You know, wow. I am not the future of the SCA. She is. Right. And so for her to come back from that tournament, having a good experience with somebody treated her decent.
What is her name, by the way, real quick? What was her name?
Hannah.
Okay. I came across a couple of female fighters, so I don't think I met her, but I met a couple of them.
Yeah. And so, you know, and she's very inexperienced, you know, and, you know, but she was able to go out and people were, you know, hey, you want to do this? You want to do this? Here's some things that might help you. right? And then there were a couple of fights that, you know, the one fighter was like, I'm not 100% sure, but I'm going to take that, you know, and then like they did like a double kill or whatever, right? And I just was very pleased to see people not kind of rules lowering the shots.
Yeah. Well, I think it's all going in the right direction.
I hope so.
You know, just to kind of pull this all back, I think Golf Wars overall was a wonderful time. 30-degree nights I could do without.
Yeah,
But
that was
Peter buddy.
I'm telling you, brother. But I'm going to tell you, the days, even in 50-degree day, was not terrible as long as we're out fighting and doing stuff. So, and the people were wonderful. The event staff did a great job keeping the event kind of going and clean. I thought the new owners did a great job. If you get a chance to go down to Golf Wars, anyone that's listening to this, go. It's a tremendously good time.
Do it.
It's a win-win. And really, it's nice to see that training has really kind of, it wasn't there for a long time, but now you can go out and just pick up at Golf Wars, all Golf Wars long. And so there's lots of stuff to be had.
some
there.
really high level fights.
Yeah. So
You can
it's
fight
really
some of
good.
the top guys in the whole SCA there.
Yeah.
So
If you want to see how
All
tall
right.
the mountain is, that's where it is.
all right. So anybody, we're going to wrap her up. We ran a little after. I apologize, everyone, but I really did want to cover that the Rose tourney because it has changed a lot over the years. And like these gentlemen said, everyone that came back to the mid-round camp who fought in it also had nothing but raving good stuff to say about it. So
Very impressed and pleased.
yep. All right. Well, thanks everyone. And we look forward to getting back to our routine. We have our next episode is actually what I'm looking forward to. And Tristan brought this one up, and it is, let me see, I have it right here. Confidence is the key to success. And this is how to train and deal with confidence issues. I'm a big believer. We can show as much technique as you want, but if you don't have the confidence, you can have great technique and still lose. So this is one that probably one of the hardest
for
parts.
years.
That's it. It's the whole imposter syndrome. All of that is probably one of the hardest parts to get past. It's the hardest part to get really help somebody with as well. And we're going to talk a lot about that, and hopefully it helps some folks. So we look forward. That's going to be in 2 weeks. And thanks for everybody for coming. Thank you guys for coming on and talking about everything that happened at Golf Wars. I know I had a great time, and I look forward to hopefully getting some more classes there next year. So
Thank y'all for having me.
all right. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, guys. Great talking to you. Have a great night.
Bye.